recently I picked up Wargames Illustrated's Giants in Miniature of Adrian, Carton de Wiart, better known to Sabaton fans as the Unkillable Soldier. Now, he's also believed to be the model for Brigadier Richie Hook in Evelyn Waugh's Sword of Honour trilogy, and he's a fascinating character. Born in 1880, at the age of 20, he volunteered for the British Army to fight in the Second Boer War, although he does admit that he would have been quite happy if the British hadn't accepted him to join the Boers. And he, from there, is wounded quite badly. He's injured in the stomach and groin. He then gets a regular commission in the 4th Dragoon Guards, having been in the Imperial Light Horse, and goes out to India, serves in India, really enjoys himself out there playing polo and so on. And he then, in 1907, finally decides actually he ought to become a British subject, having had a little bit of a telling off from Edward VII. He then volunteers for the Somaliland campaign at the start of the First World War, which is a low-level war against the dervish leader Mohammed ibn Abdullah, called the Mad Mullah by the British. He's wounded again. He's shot twice in the face, losing an eye and a portion of his ear. This is while winning his DSO. He returns to England and immediately volunteers for the Western Front, provided he will actually wear a glass eye. He gets the glass eye, volunteers to go out. He's seen by the medical board, they accept it, and on his way then to the station in the taxi, proceeds to take the glass eye out and throw it out the window. He then loses a hand, which is one of the 7 times he's injured. And when the doctor won't amputate, he actually pulls them off. He's then shot through the skull and ankle on the Somme, through the hip at Passchendaele, through the leg at Cambrai, and through the ear at Arras. And he returns to the nursing home, where I think they must have got to know him, because they actually leave a set of pyjamas there for him, waiting for him to come back. Now, he actually gets the Victoria Cross for gallantry while he's on the Western Front. And he doesn't even mention this in his autobiography. It's almost as if it was irrelevant for him. And he makes it through to the end of the war, becoming a temporary brigadier general, just 3 days before the war ends. And he's actually quite liked by his men. He's described as inspiring, and there's a lovely note that the first man in line for inspection when he took over a battalion was told to get his bootlace changed, and he notes that was despite the fact that he only had one eye. So at the end of the war, he then goes to Poland as the British Poland military mission leader, and ends up fighting there as well. Now, from there, he retires. He sort of settles in Poland. Just before the Second World War, then he is recalled and ends up doing exactly the same job he was at the end of the First World War, part of the British-Polish mission. Just escapes ahead of the Germans, who've actually put a price on his head. He gets out using a false passport through to Romania, and just gets out before the Romanian leader is assassinated, who is pro-British, and a pro-Axis force comes in. He is supposed to be going to take charge in Norway. He does briefly get into action there. He then, having probably been most successful of the commanders in Norway, returns to the UK, is sent to Northern Ireland to command 61st Division, but is told he's too old for it. Hardly being the most, what's the word I want, relaxed of people, he then ends up going to head the British Yugoslav military mission. Unfortunately, his bomber crashes off Libya, and he's knocked unconscious. It's the second plane crash. He was also involved in one in Poland, and he has to swim ashore where they're captured. Now, bear in mind how distinctive he looks, with the one eye, one arm, bits of his ear missing, everything else. That rather distinctive moustache. He's in a prisoner of war camp, and what does he do? He escapes and actually spends 6 weeks rather, on the run in Italy, even with that distinctive appearance. It's possible that he isn't picked up because the description also has him missing a leg, which he didn't. But it is worth noting he didn't actually speak Italian. Now, he is actually returned by the Italians to Britain when they want the armistice, and he is sent back as an envoy because he is very good friends with Winston Churchill. Churchill then sends him out to China to be the advisor to Chiang Kai-shek, where he finishes the war. And he does a tour. He ends up in Vietnam while the British are fighting the Viet Minh. And it's on his way home he has one of his biggest injuries when he actually falls coming down some stairs and does a heck of a lot of damage to himself. He recovers even from that, and he survives the war, writes his memoirs called Happy Odyssey, which has the most wonderful line, which is, frankly, I quite enjoyed the war, referring to the First World War, and dies at the age of 83 in 1963 with a massive list of medals, and really I think is perhaps described as, well, by Sabaton as the unkillable soldier, but I think he was actually used as the inspiration for the Terminator, listening to how much he survives. So looking at the figure itself, where could I use it? Well, it's obviously not going to be much use for the Boer War because the figure has lost the arm and the eye. So it could obviously be used at any point on the Western Front, and the Great Coat is actually really good because it'll let it work for First or Second World Wars. I've painted him up sort of later in his career with the white hair. He had very dark hair early on, but if you painted that with dark hair, it would work just as well. He's probably going to end up commanding some of my figures on the tabletop. I've got some Wargames Atlantic World War I figures he's going to go well with, and he might even get used as the Richie Hook type figure for some of my Second World War games. Really nice figure, nicely proportioned and really easy to paint, and I think I've probably rambled on enough now. So all I will say in summing it up is beautiful figure, easy to paint, and highly recommended, of a really fascinating historical character.